The grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel sparkled with holiday decorations. Horizon Technologies had spared no expense for their annual Christmas gala. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the gathering of employees dressed in their finest attire. The air hummed with conversation, laughter, and the soft notes of a live jazz band playing in the corner. Marcus Thompson adjusted his designer tie as he surveyed the room. At 32, he was one of the youngest managers in the company's marketing department. He had worked at Horizon for 5 years, and each year he attended this party with one goal: to be noticed by the right people. "Another drink, sir." A server offered him a glass of champagne from a silver tray. "Perfect timing," Marcus said, taking the glass with a practiced smile. He quickly turned away from the server, his eyes searching for Richard Wilson, the CEO of Horizon Technologies. Everyone knew that catching a few minutes of conversation with Wilson at the holiday party could mean a promotion in the new year. Marcus spotted his immediate supervisor, Janet, chatting with some board members near the bar. He made his way toward them, rehearsing opening lines in his head. He needed to sound confident but not arrogant, knowledgeable but not boastful. As he crossed the room, Marcus noticed a young black woman moving between the guests. She wore simple black pants and a white button-up shirt, not the formal attire of the other attendees. She was collecting empty glasses and napkins, keeping the space tidy. Marcus assumed she was one of the hotel workers. He didn't pay her much attention until she bent down to pick up a fallen napkin near his feet. In that moment, another guest bumped into Marcus from behind, causing him to step forward. His shiny leather shoe landed right on the woman's hand. "Oh," she gasped in pain, quickly pulling her hand away. The sudden movement made Marcus lose his balance slightly. Some champagne spilled from his glass onto his sleeve. "Watch what you're doing," Marcus snapped, louder than necessary. Several heads turned in their direction. "I'm very sorry, sir," the woman said quietly, rubbing her hand where his shoe had stepped on it. "Are you okay?" Marcus looked at the small wet spot on his sleeve and frowned. "This is a $300 shirt," he said coldly. "Maybe stick to the areas that need cleaning and pay attention to where the guests are walking." The woman's expression remained professional despite his tone. "Yes, sir, I apologize again." She quickly gathered the remaining glasses on a small tray and moved away. "These service people," Marcus muttered to a colleague standing nearby. "They hire just about anyone these days, don't they?" The colleague gave an uncomfortable smile and excused himself. Marcus didn't notice the discomfort. Instead, he felt satisfied with himself. In his mind, putting the help in their place was just part of the natural order of things. He made his way to the bar, ordering another champagne to replace his spilled one. From his new position, he could see the woman continuing to work quietly around the room. Something about her calm demeanor after their interaction annoyed him. He expected her to be more affected by his rebuke. Little did Marcus know that this brief encounter would be the beginning of a night that would change the course of his career at Horizon Technologies. And as he sipped his fresh glass of champagne, he had no idea that the young woman he had just humiliated was far more important to the company than he could possibly imagine. Marcus downed his second glass of champagne quickly and grabbed a third from a passing server. The alcohol made him feel warm and confident. He spotted his work friend, Dave, by the appetizer table and walked over. "Dave, my man," Marcus said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Good party, right?" "Yeah, not bad," Dave replied, picking up a small sandwich. "Food's better than last year." Marcus nodded, then suddenly noticed the young black woman again. She was now wiping down a table near them, carefully removing some spilled wine. "See that girl?" Marcus whispered, nodding in her direction. "She stepped right in front of me earlier and made me spill my drink." Dave glanced over. "Looks like she's just doing her job, man." Marcus snorted. "Barely. I had to tell her to watch where she was going." He raised his voice slightly as he continued, making sure she could hear him. "Some people just don't understand how to behave in places like this." The woman kept her eyes down, focused on her work, but her shoulders stiffened slightly. "Hey, I think she can hear you," Dave said quietly, looking uncomfortable. "So what?" Marcus laughed. "Maybe she'll learn something." A small group of Marcus's colleagues from the marketing department joined them, and Marcus quickly became the center of attention. He was telling a story about his recent successful presentation when the woman passed by again, now collecting empty plates. Marcus paused mid-sentence. "Excuse me," he called out to her. "Miss Janitor? The trash can is over there." He pointed to the far side of the room and smirked at his colleagues. The woman looked at him calmly. "Yes, sir, I know where it is. Thank you." Her voice was soft but clear, with a slight accent Marcus couldn't place. "Where are you from, anyway?" Marcus asked loudly. "They really hire from everywhere these days, don't they?" "Marcus," one of his female colleagues said with a frown. "That's not." "What?" Marcus interrupted. "I'm just making conversation." He turned back to the woman. "I asked where you're from." "I was born here," the woman replied simply, maintaining her composure. "In this city." "Really? With that accent?" Marcus raised his eyebrows in exaggerated disbelief. Then he put on a mocking imitation of how he thought she spoke. "You sound like you just got off the boat." A few people in the group shifted uncomfortably. Dave looked down at his plate. The woman said nothing, just quietly continued collecting dishes. "See, that's what I mean," Marcus continued as she walked away. "No sense of humor. Probably doesn't even understand half of what we're saying." "Actually, she seems perfectly articulate," said Sarah from the design team, frowning at Marcus. "And I'm pretty sure she understands exactly what you're saying." "Oh, come on," Marcus rolled his eyes. "It's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." Sarah shook her head and walked away. A couple others followed her, murmuring excuses. "What's their problem?" Marcus asked Dave, who was still standing beside him. Dave looked uncomfortable. "Look, man, you're coming on a bit strong with that lady. Maybe ease up." "Since when did everyone get so uptight?" Marcus complained, finishing his drink. "I'm just having some fun." As the evening continued, Marcus kept an eye on the young woman. Something about her calm response to his comments bothered him. He expected her to get upset, or at least look angry, but she maintained her professional demeanor. Across the room, he noticed Lisa Chen, one of the senior managers, watching him with a disapproving expression. Marcus pretended not to see her. What did he care what Lisa thought? The only opinion that mattered tonight was Richard Wilson's. And speaking of the CEO, where was he? The night was half over, and Wilson still hadn't made his appearance. Marcus had no idea that Wilson's arrival would soon change everything. The party was in full swing now. The band played louder music, and many employees had moved to the dance floor. Marcus stood with a new group of colleagues, all junior managers like himself. On his fourth drink, his words came out slightly slurred, and his laughter was too loud. "So then I told her," Marcus said, finishing a story about a client meeting, "that's not how business works in America." The group laughed, more at his drunken state than his mediocre joke. The young black woman passed by again, now helping to refill the water glasses at nearby tables. "Well, look who's back," Marcus called out, loud enough for people from other groups to turn and look. "Our hard-working cleaning lady." The woman kept her eyes forward, trying to ignore him. This only made Marcus more determined to get a reaction. "Hey, I'm talking to you," he said, stepping into her path. "Don't they teach you it's rude to ignore people where you come from?" "Excuse me, sir," she said quietly. "I need to finish my work." Marcus mimicked her accent in an exaggerated way. "I need to finish my work," he repeated, making his voice high-pitched and strange. A few people in his group laughed nervously, while others looked away in embarrassment. "Seriously, man," said Tom from accounting. "That's enough." "What?" "I'm just having some fun," Marcus replied, waving his hand dismissively. "She doesn't mind. Do you, sweetheart?" He winked at the woman. "I would prefer it if you let me do my job," she responded, her voice still calm but with an edge of firmness. "Ooh, she would prefer," Marcus mocked, looking around for support. "Listen to that fancy talk, trying to sound educated." He laughed at his own joke. The woman simply stepped around him and continued working. This made Marcus even more irritated. He followed her a few steps. "I'm curious," he called after her. "How does someone like you even get a job in a place like this? Do they have some kind of diversity quota to fill?" Several people gasped. The woman stopped walking but didn't turn around. "Marcus," Tom said sharply, "that's completely out of line." "What?" Marcus shrugged, enjoying the attention. "It's a fair question. I mean, Look at her. She can barely speak English properly. Lisa Chen, who had been watching from across the room, finally approached. At 52, she was one of the most respected senior managers at Horizon Technologies. Her expression was stern as she stepped between Marcus and the young woman. "Marcus Thompson," Lisa said, her voice low but intense. "What do you think you're doing?" Marcus straightened up, suddenly aware that he might have crossed a line with someone who could affect his career. "Just making conversation, Lisa. No harm done." "No harm?" Lisa raised an eyebrow. "You're publicly harassing a worker at our company event. Your behavior is completely unprofessional and inappropriate." "Harassing?" Marcus laughed, trying to play it cool despite the nervous feeling growing in his stomach. "Come on, that's a bit dramatic. We're just joking around." "I don't see her laughing," Lisa replied coldly. She turned to the young woman. "Are you okay?" The woman nodded. "Yes, ma'am, thank you." Lisa turned back to Marcus. "This isn't who we are at Horizon, Marcus. This isn't how we treat people." Marcus felt his face flush with embarrassment and anger. Who was Lisa to lecture him in front of everyone? Look, if she can't handle a little teasing, maybe she shouldn't be working events like this. Lisa stared at him for a long moment. "You have no idea what you're talking about," she finally said. "And you have no idea who you're talking to." With that, she walked away, leaving Marcus confused. The small crowd that had gathered began to disperse. Some people gave Marcus disapproving looks. Others whispered among themselves. The young woman had disappeared into the kitchen area. What did she mean by that? Marcus asked, turning to Tom, about not knowing who I'm talking to. Tom shook his head. "I don't know, man, but you might want to cool it for the rest of the night. Lisa doesn't get involved unless it's serious." Marcus loosened his tie, suddenly feeling hot and uncomfortable. The room seemed to be watching him, judging him. But he was too proud to admit he might have gone too far. "Whatever," he muttered. "I need another drink." Marcus stood alone at the bar, nursing his fifth drink of the evening. The confrontation with Lisa Chen had left him feeling slightly embarrassed, but mostly angry. Who was she to tell him how to behave? In his mind, he had done nothing wrong. He was just having some fun with the cleaning stuff. "Vodka tonic," he told the bartender, pushing his empty glass forward. The bartender gave him a look. "Sir, perhaps some water instead." "Did I ask for water?" Marcus snapped. "Vodka tonic. Now." With a reluctant nod, the bartender prepared his drink. As Marcus waited, he scanned the room. People seemed to be avoiding his gaze now. Had word spread about his confrontation with Lisa? The thought made him even more irritated. When the bartender handed him his drink, Marcus took a large gulp and turned to face the party again. That's when he noticed the young woman had returned to the ballroom. She was now helping to arrange chairs near the small stage that had been set up at the front of the room. Something about her continued calmness bothered him deeply. She should be upset, intimidated, or at least rattled by his comments. Instead, she worked with a quiet confidence that seemed out of place for someone in her position. "Thinks she's better than me," Marcus muttered to himself, taking another drink. Dave appeared at his side, looking concerned. "Hey, man, you might want to slow down a bit." "Not you too," Marcus groaned. "Did Lisa send you over here to babysit me?" "No, I'm just looking out for you," Dave said. "People are talking, Marcus. You're making a scene." "So what if I am?" Marcus replied, his voice rising. "It's a party, isn't it? We're supposed to be having fun." "There's fun, and then there's whatever you're doing," Dave said, lowering his voice. "Look, Richard Wilson just arrived. You've been talking all week about impressing him. Do you really want him to see you like this?" Marcus straightened immediately at the mention of the CEO's name. "Wilson's here. Where?" Dave nodded toward the entrance where a tall, distinguished black man in his 60s was greeting the senior executives. Richard Wilson had founded Horizon Technologies 30 years ago and built it into one of the most successful tech companies in the region. He was known for his brilliant mind and no-nonsense approach to business. "This is my chance," Marcus said, smoothing his hair and adjusting his tie. "I need to talk to him." "Maybe finish that drink first and get some mints," Dave suggested. "You smell like a distillery." Marcus ignored him and started making his way across the room toward Wilson, but halfway there, he stopped. The young woman he had been mocking all night was now standing near Wilson. They weren't speaking to each other, but they were in the same group, which seemed strange to Marcus. "What is she doing over there?" he asked aloud. "That's not where the cleaning staff should be." A woman standing nearby overheard him. "Oh, they're getting ready for Mr. Wilson's speech. It should be starting soon." As if on cue, the lights dimmed slightly and the band stopped playing. A tall woman in a blue dress stepped onto the stage and approached the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "if I could have your attention, please. It's time for our annual address from our founder and CEO, Mr. Richard Wilson." The room broke into applause as Wilson made his way to the stage. Marcus clapped along, though his mind was still stuck on the strange sight of the cleaning woman standing with the executives. "Something's not right," he murmured to himself. As Wilson took the stage, Marcus noticed Lisa Chen watching him from across the room. She had a strange expression on her face, almost like she was waiting for something to happen. It made Marcus uncomfortable. The applause died down, and Wilson smiled at the crowd. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began. "As always, our holiday gala is a chance to celebrate our achievements and to thank each and every one of you for your hard work." Marcus tried to focus on Wilson's words, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something important was about to happen, something that involved him. And judging by the way people kept glancing in his direction, he wasn't going to like it. Richard Wilson commanded the room with his presence. His deep voice filled the ballroom as he spoke about the company's achievements over the past year. Marcus tried to focus, but his mind kept wandering back to the strange situation with the cleaning woman. "This has been a remarkable year for Horizon Technologies," Wilson continued. "Our profits are up 20%. We've launched 3 successful new products, and we've expanded into 2 new international markets." The crowd applauded enthusiastically. Marcus joined in, clapping a bit too loudly, still hoping to catch Wilson's attention. "But tonight," Wilson said, raising his hand to quiet the room, "I want to talk about something even more important than profits or products. I want to talk about our company culture." A hush fell over the room. Marcus felt a strange twist in his stomach. "At Horizon, we believe that how we treat each other matters just as much as what we achieve together," Wilson said, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Respect isn't just a word we put in our mission statement. It's how we behave every day, with every person we encounter." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Was it his imagination, or did Wilson's eyes linger on him for a moment? "I founded this company on the principle that talent can come from anywhere," Wilson continued. "That a person's worth isn't determined by their title, their background, or what they look like." More people were glancing in Marcus's direction now. He felt his face growing hot. "Which brings me to a special announcement," Wilson said, smiling now. "Many of you know that we've been looking for someone to head our new community outreach division. This is a senior position that will report directly to me." Marcus perked up. A new senior position. This could be his chance to move up. Maybe all the awkwardness of the evening would be forgotten if he could somehow position himself for this role. After an extensive search, Wilson continued, "I'm pleased to announce that we found the perfect person for this role. Someone who embodies the values of humility, hard work, and genuine concern for others." Wilson looked toward the side of the stage and gestured. "I'd like to introduce you to our new director of community outreach." The young black woman that Marcus had been mocking all night stepped up onto the stage. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. The room seemed to tilt slightly. "Many of you may not know Zora," Wilson said, putting his arm around her shoulders. "But she's been preparing for this role for months, studying every aspect of our operation from the ground up." Zora stood tall beside Wilson, her simple black pants and white shirt now looking less like a uniform and more like a practical choice for someone who had been working all evening. Zora holds a master's degree in business administration from Harvard and has spent the last 3 years running a successful nonprofit that helps underprivileged youth access education in technology fields, Wilson explained proudly. Marcus felt sick. The vodka in his stomach threatened to come back up. "What some of you may not know," Wilson continued, "is that Zora is also my daughter." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Marcus gripped the edge of a nearby table to steady himself. "Now, before you cry nepotism," Wilson said with a chuckle, "let me assure you that Zora went through the same rigorous interview process as every other candidate. In fact, the hiring committee didn't know she was my daughter until after they made their decision. Wilson turned to Zora with clear pride in his eyes. When Zora told me she wanted to understand our company from every angle, including how our events run behind the scenes, I couldn't have been prouder. That's the kind of leader who will help Horizon grow in the right way. Zora stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you, Dad," she said, her voice clear and confident, the same voice that had politely asked Marcus to let her do her job earlier. "I'm honored to join the Horizon team officially. I look forward to working with all of you to make a difference in our community." As applause filled the room, Marcus felt dozens of eyes on him. Dave stood nearby, his mouth open in shock. Lisa Chen watched him from across the room with a knowing look. The woman he had humiliated all evening wasn't a janitor. She was Richard Wilson's daughter, and his new boss. The applause for Zora Wilson's appointment seemed to last forever. To Marcus, each clap felt like a hammer striking his career's coffin. His mouth had gone completely dry, and despite the 5 drinks he consumed, he suddenly felt painfully sober. When the applause finally died down, Richard Wilson continued his speech, but Marcus couldn't focus on the words. His mind replayed every cruel comment, every mocking laugh, every degrading gesture he had directed at Zora throughout the evening. Each memory now felt like a fresh cut across his professional future. "And now," Wilson concluded, "please enjoy the rest of the evening. Zora will be mingling, so those of you who haven't met her yet, please introduce yourselves." As people began to move again, Marcus remained frozen in place. Across the room, he could see Zora stepping down from the stage, immediately surrounded by eager colleagues offering congratulations. Her face was warm and friendly, nothing like the hurt or angry expression he had tried to provoke earlier. "Man, you are so screwed," Dave whispered, suddenly appearing at his side. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Marcus couldn't even respond. His career at Horizon, which had been slowly climbing upward for 5 years, now seemed to be collapsing before his eyes. "I need to leave," Marcus finally managed to say. "Leaving won't fix this," Dave replied. "Everyone saw how you treated her. Half the executive team was watching when Lisa called you out." Marcus loosened his tie, feeling like he couldn't breathe. "What am I supposed to do? Go up to her and say, 'Sorry I treated you like garbage all night. Congrats on the promotion?'" "I don't know what you should do," Dave said, stepping away. "But I know I need to distance myself right now. This is bad, Marcus. Really bad." Dave walked away, leaving Marcus alone. Other colleagues who had been friendly earlier now avoided eye contact as they passed by. Some whispered to each other while glancing in his direction. Marcus had never felt so isolated in a crowded room. He made his way to the bar, not for another drink but simply to have somewhere to stand. The bartender who had suggested water earlier now looked at him with barely concealed contempt. "Just water," Marcus said quietly. As he sipped his water, Marcus noticed Lisa Chen approaching Zora. The 2 women embraced warmly, clearly familiar with each other. Then Lisa said something that made Zora look in Marcus's direction. Their eyes met across the room. Marcus quickly looked away, his heart pounding. When he dared to look back, Zora was making her way through the crowd, directly toward him. "Oh God," he muttered, considering a desperate dash for the exit, but he knew running would only make things worse. Zora stopped in front of him, her expression unreadable. Up close, Marcus noticed details he had missed before: the elegant pearl earrings she wore, the intelligent spark in her eyes, the subtle designer label on her simple white shirt. "Mr. Thompson," she said calmly, "I believe we've met several times tonight." Marcus swallowed hard. "Miss Wilson, His practiced words failed him. What could he possibly say? "I understand you've been with Horizon for 5 years," she continued, her voice neither angry nor friendly. "In the marketing department." "Yes," he managed to say. "I'm an associate marketing manager." "I see." Zora studied him for a moment. "The Community Outreach Division will be working closely with marketing on several initiatives next quarter." The implication was clear. She would be in a position to influence his career, possibly even determine its future. "Ms. Wilson, about tonight," Marcus began, desperately searching for words that could repair the damage. "Tonight has been very informative," she interrupted smoothly. "I've learned a lot about Horizon's culture and the people who work here." Her words hit him like ice water. She wasn't just Richard Wilson's daughter. She was a Harvard MBA graduate and his new superior in the company hierarchy. And he had spent the entire evening showing her exactly who he was. "Enjoy the rest of your evening, Mr. Thompson," Zora said, turning away. "I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other soon." As she walked away, Marcus realized that everyone nearby had heard their exchange. The look on their faces told him everything he needed to know about his future at Horizon Technologies. It was going to be a very long Monday morning. Monday morning arrived with painful clarity. Marcus had spent the weekend in a state of anxious dread, checking his email every few minutes, expecting to find a termination notice. When no such message came, he faced a new fear, having to walk into the office and face his colleagues. He arrived early, hoping to avoid the usual morning crowd in the lobby. The security guard, who normally greeted him with a friendly nod, now looked at him with cold recognition. Word had spread fast. "Morning," Marcus mumbled, hurrying past. The elevator ride to the 12th floor felt endless. When the doors finally opened, Marcus stepped into an unusually quiet marketing department. A few early arrivals glanced up from their desks, then quickly looked away. No one offered the usual Monday morning greetings. Marcus slipped into his office and closed the door. His hands shook slightly as he turned on his computer. The first email in his inbox made his heart sink. Meeting request. 10 a.m., Conference Room 3B. Attendees: Marcus Thompson, Susan Reynolds, HR, Michael Park, Department Head. This was it, the end of his career at Horizon. For the next 2 hours, Marcus tried to focus on his work, but his mind kept replaying Friday night's events. How could he have been so blind, so cruel, so stupid? The question circled in his head without answers. At 9:55, he gathered his courage and made his way to Conference Room 3B. Susan from HR was already there, arranging folders on the table. She gave him a professional but cool nod. "Take a seat, Marcus. Michael will be here shortly." Marcus sat down, his mouth dry. Through the glass walls, he could see colleagues walking past, some slowing down to peek inside. His humiliation was now a public spectacle. Michael Park entered the room precisely at 10 o'clock, his expression serious. At 50, Michael had been with Horizon for over 20 years and had a reputation for being fair but firm. "Marcus," he said, taking a seat across from him, "I think you know why we're here." Marcus nodded, unable to find his voice. Susan opened a folder. "We've received multiple complaints about your behavior at the company holiday party on Friday night," she began, "specifically regarding your interactions with Zora Wilson. The complaints describe a pattern of racist and discriminatory behavior," Michael added. "Comments about her accent, her background, and her capabilities." "Several witnesses have provided statements," Susan continued, including Senior Manager Lisa Chen, who directly intervened. Marcus stared at the table. "I know what I did," he said quietly. "I was wrong." "Yes, you were," Michael agreed. "Under normal circumstances, this would be grounds for immediate termination." Marcus looked up, surprised. Under normal circumstances. Michael and Susan exchanged glances. "We received a call this morning," Susan explained, "from Zora Wilson." Marcus felt his stomach twist. "Ms. Wilson has asked that we not terminate your employment," Michael said, watching Marcus carefully. "She believes that would be too easy." Marcus didn't understand. Too easy. Her exact words were, "Firing him teaches him nothing and helps no one." Susan read from her notes. "I'd rather he learn something valuable from this experience." Michael leaned forward. "So here's what's going to happen, Marcus. You're being placed on probation for 6 months. During this time, you'll complete our comprehensive diversity and inclusion training program. You'll also work 1 day each week with our community outreach division." The realization hit Marcus like a brick. With Zora Wilson. "Yes," Susan confirmed. "She feels you have skills that could benefit the division's marketing efforts. But make no mistake, this is not a reward. It's a chance for you to demonstrate that you can change. The alternative," Michael added, "is that you resign immediately." Marcus sat in stunned silence. Zora Wilson had every reason to want him fired. Instead, she had created a path for him to redeem himself. A difficult, humbling path that would force him to face his biases head-on. I understand, Marcus finally said. I'll take the probation. Good, Michael nodded. Your diversity training starts tomorrow. You'll report to the Community Outreach Division on Wednesdays, beginning next week. As the meeting ended and Marcus walked back to his office, he felt the weight of what lay ahead. The next 6 months would be the hardest of his professional life. Every Wednesday, he would have to face the woman he had publicly humiliated, now knowing she held power over his career. But somewhere beneath his fear and embarrassment, Marcus felt something unexpected, a small flicker of gratitude. Zora Wilson could have ended his career with a single word. Instead, she had given him something he didn't deserve, a second chance. 6 months had passed since that fateful holiday party. The seasons had changed from winter to summer, and Marcus Thompson had changed too, though not as visibly as the world outside. Today was his final Wednesday working with the Community Outreach Division. For 26 Wednesdays, he had walked into Zora Wilson's department, each time carrying the weight of their first encounter. The early weeks had been excruciating. Colleagues who knew what had happened watched his every move. Zora herself remained professional but distant, assigning him marketing tasks without the warmth she showed others. But as the weeks passed, something unexpected happened. The diversity training, which Marcus had initially viewed as punishment, began to open his eyes. He learned about unconscious bias, privilege, and the daily experiences of people different from himself. For the first time, he truly listened to perspectives he had previously dismissed. Working in community outreach exposed him to people from all walks of life. He helped develop marketing materials for programs that supported underprivileged youth, interviewed scholarship recipients whose stories moved him deeply, and saw firsthand the impact of the work Zora's division was doing. Today, Marcus sat in the small conference room, waiting for his final evaluation meeting with Zora. His probation would officially end tomorrow. What came next remained uncertain. The door opened and Zora entered. At 32, the same age as Marcus, she had accomplished more than most people do in a lifetime. Today she wore a professional blue dress, a far cry from the simple clothes she had worn that night to help the staff and observe the company culture. Marcus, she said, taking a seat across from him. Thank you for being punctual, as always. Thank you for meeting with me, he replied, his voice steady despite his nerves. Zora opened a folder containing his evaluation. Over the past 6 months, your work for this division has been excellent. The scholarship campaign materials you developed exceeded our expectations and helped us reach our fundraising goal 2 weeks early. Marcus nodded, unable to feel pride in the accomplishment. Not yet. Thank you. Your supervisors from the diversity training program also gave you high marks, she continued. They noted your active participation and genuine engagement with the material. She closed the folder and looked directly at him. But numbers and evaluations don't tell the whole story, do they? No, Marcus agreed quietly. They don't. Zora studied him for a moment. Why do you think I asked HR not to fire you? The question caught him off guard. For 6 months, he had wondered but never dared to ask. I don't know, he admitted. You've had every right to demand my termination. Yes, I did, she agreed. It would have been the easiest solution, but easy solutions rarely solve the real problem. She leaned forward slightly. Marcus, do you know what I saw that night? I saw a man who believed he was better than others because of their job, their accent, the color of their skin. Firing you wouldn't change that belief. It would just send you somewhere else, where you might treat someone else the same way. Marcus felt shame wash over him again, but this time it was different. Cleaner somehow, without the panic of self-preservation. I've wanted to say this properly for 6 months, he said, looking directly at her. I am truly sorry for how I treated you that night. My behavior was inexcusable. There's no justification for it. No, there isn't, Zora agreed. But there can be growth from it. The question is, have you grown, Marcus, or have you just been playing the part to save your job? It was the most direct she had been with him in 6 months. Marcus took a deep breath before answering. When this started, I was just trying to save my job, he admitted. But somewhere along the way, things changed. I changed. The people I've met, the stories I've heard, they'd become real to me in a way they never were before. Zora nodded slowly. Your probation ends tomorrow. HR is prepared to return you to full status in the marketing department. But I've also created a permanent position in our division for someone with your skills. The choice is yours. Marcus stared at her in surprise. You'd want me to stay, after what happened? Zora smiled for the first time. I judge people not just by their mistakes, but by what they do after making them. As Marcus left Zora's office that afternoon, he felt lighter than he had in months. The weight of that night would always be with him, a reminder of who he had been and who he never wanted to be again. But now it was balanced by something else, the possibility of who he might become. The choice ahead was clear, not because it was easy, but because it was right.